I took this video last night, my 100th video for YouTube, and obviously thanks to everybody for watching over the past 7 months. There are my views, and there are my videos. I had 99 as of yesterday. And it's mostly the tutorials about the Vega, but you can see all my playthroughs and my DigiHUD speedometer review and my escape velocity videos, all sorts of stuff. And more will be on the way. And I guess I'm going to jump over to Trainz to do my actual show here, if you can call it that. First of all, I corrected the Vegas one more time, giving them the scenery asset code VL, which apparently is for street vehicles, but it's confusing because CCP listed as land. So I was completely confused before, and I didn't look up the vehicle scenery objects built into the game because often the settings are wrong. But it's corrected now anyway. So there's my F7 lash up with a sort of Super Chief-ish train behind it. And I'm going to take it over the newest section of the Mainline project here. This is going to be my first proper playthrough, if you can even call it proper. So I just set up the switches, and any minute I'm going to pull out. The brakes are off. The physics file on these F7s is actually my own. The rest of it is from the game. The cab is from the FL9 because I wanted the cab signals. I haven't been able to get the alerter to work correctly though, so I've removed it. I think that might be that the alerter is obsolete even as of Trainz 2009, because when you hit the insert button to acknowledge, nothing happens. So I assume that that bug would have come up in the forums if in fact that were a bug. I think it's more likely deprecated. Anyway, as I'm creeping out here, you can also see the other things I've done with this locomotive. The brake pipe pressure is at the correct 110 pounds for passenger service. I've also given it 102 mile-an-hour gearing. Otherwise, I haven't fiddled with it too much because I generally like the F7s that come with Trainz. I especially like the sound because I've ridden in a fair number of real F7s, and that's pretty much exactly what they sound like. It's very, very realistic. Now, the downside is that the dynamic brakes use exactly the same sound file, which is not realistic. Dynamic brakes whine, but they're not the prime mover. There's a little work crossing I put at the end of this yard. It's one of the last things I added before I finalized this yard. And the rest of this track layout is already a year or two old because this section took me an incredibly long time because I was studying. As well as doing a lot of work for pay. I just don't have any time for this sort of thing much anymore. But during the New Year's break I got this section done, so it was the logical choice for my 100th video. I'm going to do 2 more parts of this because to get to the end of this section takes that much time. So here I'm clicking my switches back to the default position here as the train clears them. One thing I had to relearn was how to use the dynamics. The easiest way when you're driving with the keyboard is to use C for a toggle. They don't use the 2 different dynamic brake positions, they only use on or off. So really three. They don't use the three positions. They only use on or off. And then you use the throttle to adjust how much brake you use. But here I'm still going to slowly need it. Once I get closer to 45 miles an hour, I'm going to cut in the dynamics, and most of this trip will be just rolling downhill with the dynamics. And my driving on this is really, really sloppy, because I haven't driven one of these trains in months and months, if not over a year. So I'm horrifically out of practice. It's crazy because trains used to be my calling, so you'd think I'd be much better at this than I am with the car racing games and the flight simulators and so on, which I've never done any of that stuff in real life. But the thing is, yeah, see, I'm running over the speed limit here. I haven't figured out how to use the dynamics again. So my driving on this is really embarrassing. At this stage in the mainline project, I'm up into the mountains, and so I'm actually headed down eastbound towards the origin. It just made sense to do the demonstration this way. See, I'm having trouble getting the right balance on the brakes there. I'm either giving it too much or too little. Not in practice at all. And of course, this is my first full run down this line since I finished it. I did a few test runs and did even worse than this. And now I'm finally getting the hang of my own route. The purpose of this project, of course, was to have a long-distance line haul route so that I could fix that cab signal issue or develop my own cab signals. A lot of the locomotives in or on trains don't have working cab signals, even though they should, like the Excella Express, for example. So I'm trying to get this working on all of them. But see, the problem was I started the project when Trainz 2009 was almost new. So it was really years ago, and now the game has gone through 3 generations. So this is a version of the game that I'm already being criticized on YouTube for even using. But the problem, of course, is that the newer versions are so demanding on a system that I really can't use them. I don't have a powerful enough computer. And Trainz A New Era, which is the newest version, has been criticized for being incompatible with everything. So what am I going to do there? I mean, my route would have to be completely redone. All the models, which I have literally hundreds in it by now, would have to be updated, and it's just too much work. It's not worth it. See, the blunder with Trainz A New Era was that they did the upgrade and didn't think about backwards compatibility, and thereby didn't think about the whole nature of the game, which is people collect tremendous numbers of models, and then they build layouts with them. Because it's really the only way. It's just like real life. If you're building a model train layout, so it's not really real life, let's say physical modeling. If you are building a model train layout, your biggest challenge is getting those models, because the distributors are, not particularly reliable or anything. And everything's expensive. So in the case of video games, well, you have to find assets that are compatible. And if you make everything incompatible, then it's not possible to build a good layout. And existing layouts, of course, become unusable unless you have the older versions of the game. So by building Trainz A New Era in the way that they did, they made almost all content useless. And so everybody had to undo over a decade of work to start from scratch, which made no sense at all. Really, what they should do is build backward compatibility like in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Anyway, on to the next part.